Hi everyone, and welcome to the first video in my new series where I talk about the Mask comic books. Now, some of you that may be watching and keeping up with this channel for a long time and the podcast will know that the Mask is one of my favourite comic book series of all time, and I'm talking about the Dark Horse comics that came out before the Jim Carrey movie, where the Mask is a psychotic murderer who just basically kills everyone. He even cuts off people's faces and wears them as a disguise in this Hannibal Lecter style. And in this, the first episode, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the storyline of the very first story arc in the comics. Actually the very first couple of issues anyway, not maybe the whole story arc in the comics, as I want material for further episodes of this. So, yeah, let's get into it. Now, obviously, the comic book version of The Mask was very different to the movie version, but in every version of this character, it revolves around a magical mask, which gives the wearer the ability to kind of shape-shift. It obviously changes his appearance, gives him the big green head with the big teeth. That's something the movie got very right, actually. Visually, Jim Carrey's version of the character looked very, very true to the comics. Probably one of the most faithful adaptations, visually, actually, of a character since probably the Christopher Reeve Superman movies. I mean, you look at Batman 1989, and even that, they changed the costume somewhat. This was basically a direct adaptation. The suit was a slightly different colour, but apart from that, yeah, the wackiness of the suit was basically still there. Now, obviously, when you wear the mask, it removes all your social inhibitions, and in the first issues of the comic book, the mask is found by Stanley Ipkiss, and that's where some of the similarities start from the initial series of the comic books to the movie. Now, the mask was originally created in a series called Mayhem. Actually, no, sorry, he was in a series called Dark Horse Presents and then moved into Mayhem Comics, which was later reprinted as The Mask Issue 0. Basically, in this comic, he's known as the Big Head Killer, and the Mask is basically just a psychotic murderer who goes after revenge on anyone that basically did wrong to the wearer of the mask. And it slowly starts to turn you into a psychopath. Even when you're not wearing it, you start to change because of its ability. The mask is very much a metaphor for how, I suppose, drugs and stuff like that, how you start to lose your mind while wearing it, and also it becomes addictive. That's one of the main key points. The mask, you can't really get rid of it. It's almost like the ring in Lord of the Rings, the way that it transforms Smeagol into Gollum. Now, as this series where I talk about the mask continues, I'm going to be giving you a little bit more each episode about the background of the character and some of the behind the scenes. This is mostly information that I'm getting off the internet, but now I'm just going to talk about the first few issues of the comic book itself. Stanley Ipkiss is a guy who's basically been bullied all his life. He doesn't exactly look like Jim Carrey. He's a smaller, sort of weedier guy that wears glasses and stuff like that. But one of the opening scenes of the thing is he's buying the mask as a present for his girlfriend. And on his way back, he is basically picked on by a biker gang. And this leads into a scene where, when he does first put on the mask, the first people he gets revenge on is this biker gang, in a scene that is very, very reminiscent of the Jim Carrey movie, as you can see in some of the shots that I'm putting up in editing next to me, which aren't there while I'm recording this. Now, as he continues on with this sort of revenge mode, he decides he's going to go after other people in his life that have treated him badly, such as one of his ex-teachers. And this is where it really starts to differ from the comics, where it gets, rather than the cartoon lunacy of the movie that everyone knows and loves, you start to see, actually, this is a really messed up character who is basically, he almost beats an old woman to death in front of a class full of children. And there are other revenge scenes in the movie, such as he goes after the mechanics that have stiffed him on the price of fixing his car, which is another scene that actually made it into the movie adaptation. But in his real life, Stanley Ipkiss somewhat changes. He starts watching different kinds of television, dressing in like military outfit, like camouflage, and watching these shows and laughing at murder and stuff like that. And his girlfriend starts to get suspicious. She basically tries to stop him from doing all this, and he becomes violent towards her. It's actually amazing how quickly this transformation in his character happens, and even though it happens so quickly and it's not slow and drawn out like you would expect a lot of character arcs to happen, such as like Walter White in Breaking Bad. Now, it doesn't feel forced. It feels like, okay, this mask has seriously changed this person. Like, he's fucked up beyond measure at this point. And basically the girlfriend starts to get worried, and it all ends in a police shootout in his apartment building. And this is where you start to find out exactly how immortal the mask actually is. He gets shot several times in the head, and basically takes out an entire unit of police officers. Now, also during this shootout, the police pass an old woman on the stairs and ask if she knows where the commotion is going on, and she points up, and for some reason one of the policemen decides, wait, was that old woman drinking a beer? And it's like, so that's weird apparently. So that's one of the few things about this issue. Maybe it's reminiscent of the time that it was written, but that didn't seem so weird to me at first. But then they turn back, and the mask has basically revealed that he was the old woman. He can literally transform his appearance and disguise himself whenever he wants. He doesn't have to be this green-headed freak. What ensues after this point is basically just page after page of shootouts and mayhem, and the mask, it looks like, I mean, let's face it, if this was to be any other character, this character would be dead. I mean, some of his healing factor is probably faster than, say, Deadpool or Wolverine's at this point. It does seem to be very much a cartoon creature who can survive anything, yet with a lot of blood and gore. And he ends up stealing a cop car, and there's a police chase, and there's all these awesome action scenes. That is the sort of thing that if they was to make a new version of this into a movie now, it would have to be a higher rated movie. Like, it would have to be done along the lines of, say, Dredd that came out last year. Now, the issue ends with Stanley Ipkiss returning to his apartment and actually getting shot to death by his girlfriend after taking off the mask. And he thinks that he's safe at this point. He gets in, he thinks he's safe, he puts the mask down on the bed, goes into the bathroom, washes up. As he comes out, he just gets shot to pieces, and then on the very last panel, you see that his girlfriend has in fact put on the mask and murdered Stanley Ipkiss. And that's a big difference from the comic. Now, Lieutenant Calloway, who was in the movie, is in it as well, and I'll be getting to him more when I discuss issue 2, as it does get into very different territory to what the movies certainly did. And thankfully at no point does this comic book even come close to the monstrosity that was Son of the Mask. And so yeah, come back when I do issue 2 and I'll be telling you more about the series. Now, I know that this isn't exactly screen accurate, but I ended up making this in high school during a woodworking class. It was actually part of a work experience placement that I had to do when I was in high school, but I made this completely out of wood myself, and yeah, you can see what I was going for. This is more based on the version of the mask that was in the animated series rather than the movie. But yeah, it's actually not made out of the sort of wood that it looks like, and it took a long time to make. And it's genuinely the only prop, apart from a batarang which since broke, that I've actually made myself in my collection, and it's something that I'm quite proud of and I will be holding for a long time. But thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to subscribe.